So for harmonics, what I'd like to do is just bring this kind of back to the RMS mode. I just turn things off and turn it back on. It's kind of the quickest way to do it. And I'll go to this and we'll put this over in RMS mode as well. So when we're looking at power quality, the third thing we're going to kind of look for is for harmonics. And when you have harmonics, what happens is you sort of clip the sine wave. So what happens in this case is while the peak is going to stay about where it is, your RMS is going to go down because of this heating value thing. You have less area. You have all this area here to heat up this resistor. When you start shrinking this, you have less area heated up. It's going to heat it up to a lower temperature. So instead of 120 volts, now you might be at 105 volts or something like that. So now with the lower RMS and the peak is still up at 160 volts, this ratio changes. So we're no longer where the peak on a good sine wave, the RMS value equals 0.707 of the V peak, and the V peak equals about 1.66 times the RMS. And this is kind of the ratio that we're going to work with, because the 1.66 is also called the crest factor. And what this crest factor tells us is when we have a ratio of the V peak to the RMS of 1.66, this tells us that we have a clean sine wave. If this ratio changes, we no longer have a clean sine wave, we have a distorted sine wave. So if when you start getting into harmonics, what happens is the ratio of, as the RMS drops and the peak stays the same, this ratio starts to go up. So if you see a crest factor of 2 or 3 or even as bad as 4, this is telling you that this waveform is being very distorted. So you don't need to see it on an oscilloscope. You can actually just take the V peak to the RMS and divide. So we can all take 0.707, let's say this comes out to 120 volts, 0.567, and the peak is 167.35, and we can divide those in and come up with a ratio of 1.66. Well, you can if you're kind of like Rain Man, but most of the time, if you're having problems, this ratio is going to be way off. If you're having problems, you're going to see a ratio of 3 to 4. So these crest factors are not hard to complicate it. If you do this and you go from a RMS of 118 to 160, well, if you're seeing 160 and you go on an RMS, if you're seeing a peak of 160 volts on an RMS of 100 volts, that tells you right away that you have your ratios are pretty far off and you could be having some serious harmonic problems.